Hello, my name is Leyla Kayhan Elbirlik. I'm an ANAMED Senior Fellow this year, and my project is tentatively entitled Marriage, Divorce, Children, and Property in Istanbul between 1750 and 1920. I'm a historian focusing on the social history of the Ottoman Empire in the early modern period. I've been a former ANAMED Fellow between 2008 and 9 when I was writing my dissertation. I hold a master's degree and a PhD from Harvard University in the fields of history and Middle Eastern studies, and I've completed my BA in Bard College. My research areas include the history of the family and of the structure of gender relations, particularly in late 18th century Ottoman realm. Lately, my growing interests in the history of childhood and the history of parent-child relations have resulted in one of my most recent publications, a book chapter entitled The Emotional Bond Between Early Modern Children and Parents, a case study of Sümbülzade's ideal child in children and childhood in the Ottoman Empire between 14th and 20th century. I have also a forthcoming chapter in the edited volume Early Modern Istanbul, published as part of the Brill Companion series on early modern studies, and the name of this chapter is Family and Neighborhood Lives. Apart from ANAMED, my research was supported by ARIT and the National Endowment for Humanities in the former years. Currently, I'm writing a monograph expanding my dissertation project both thematically and chronologically. My project traces the history of 18th century Ottoman family with a specific emphasis on the role of women and the position of children within the family. In studying marriage, divorce, inheritance, and other property allocation practices, I explore the dynamics in the way both the marital union and the family is envisioned from a mid 18th century to the early 20th century. Building on the research that I conducted for my dissertation, my monograph encompasses the interpretation of a wide range of sources, including court records, fatwa collections, contemporary chronicles, estate inventories, early 20th century legal enactments, and literature of conduct. My monograph reflects on the family, evaluating the changing dynamics of the household between the pre-Tanzimat period and the period in which some preliminary modernizing attempts were made by the state in 1917. By expanding my research focus to the early 20th century, I propose to explore the influence of individual and social agency in pressing for a more systematized approach to personal status laws that affect the family. This approach or this project ultimately aspires to render a thick description of Ottoman family in the manner proposed by Clifford Geertz. This approach draws on Geertz's exhortation to interpret things in their context rather than assessing them in isolation. In the past 30 years, a number of scholars have paved the way for the formation of a historical understanding of gender and family by applying methodologies that were in practice with respect to Europe and the United States earlier, and also by employing new techniques to understand the sources unique to the field to produce both qualitative, quantitative, and interpretive results. For instance, Behar and Duben's study of the late 19th and early 20th century Istanbul households employed the quantitative methodology developed by the Cambridge Group for the history of population and social structure, drawing on the censuses of 1885 and 1907 for the first demographic analysis of the family. Whereas much family and gender related research was done in Anatolian cities and in the Arab and Balkan provinces of the empire, very little is known about the subject in Istanbul prior to the legal and administrative Tanzimat reforms in 1839. That said, there is also limited qualitative and quantitative research on the effects of the short lived Ottoman law of family rights of 1917. In my approach, I plan to focus on the private life of the family by exploring the financial and custodial negotiations that had a bearing on the lives of the spouses and that of children. Although it's a rather challenging task to include the experiences of children, since they do not figure as direct agents in the registers, it's possible to combine a thread of narratives based on the similarity of categorical cases regarding children. In the monograph, I propose to examine first the legal conceptualization of matrimony pertaining to the nature of the Islamic marriage contract, specifically exploring the animate relationship between individuals and the court in judiciary and extrajudiciary spheres, as well as the court's intermediary position in terms of its participation in private life. I then would like to discuss the two most common divorce categories in Ottoman society. This discussion will be substantiated with relevant data enumerating the registry of cases by gender and the social and financial status of claimants, while also elucidating the reasons for the fluctuation in numbers of registered divorce cases during the assessed period. Given that divorce was the unilateral right of men, the dissolution of marriage had economically undesirable consequences for women, obviously. Children could also be severely affected by the results of divorce if their mother was decided to be the sole provider or caretaker after the settlement of divorce. So, the transfer of materials of financial value, including money and immovable property, between the nuptial couple in exchange for or freedom from certain rights and responsibilities is important in understanding the way children configured into the marital union. Given the scope of its subject matter, my project will appeal to a wide audience, hopefully, including researchers of Middle Eastern studies, sociologists, and anthropologists, among others. Historians interested in such issues as gender and women, law and society, sexuality and transgression, history of the family, history of emotions, cultural studies, and population studies will find this work particularly useful. Um, the historical contextualization of early modern Ottoman marriage and divorce has a significant bearing on the concerns and debates that engage intellectuals in the present day. My aim to visualize the collected data in the digital sphere will allow for a more informed estimation of family and gender in early modern Istanbul. It's my hope that this project will lead to future collaborations that will enhance our understanding of the early modern world. I thank ANAMED for supporting my research and giving me the opportunity to work with such a great group of distinguished scholars throughout the year. Thank you.